Hey guys, welcome back to Formers Friday here on the Pop Culture Network. As always, I'm your host, Dirk. Today we're going to be taking a look at the Minicon Assault Team from Transformers Generations. Now, like all the others, it comes with a comic book. This shows Centuratron on the cover, which is who the combiners turn into. And again, this is a reprint. This says Dark Cybertron number 4, but this is Transformers More Than Meets the Eye. I've forgotten what issue number already. 23? Is that right? 27? No, 23? Whatever. Anyway, it does reprint that part of the storyline, although I have to say, this one is bound a little nicer than the other one. This one is square bound with a glued spine as opposed to the normal stapled spine. I didn't notice that on the other one, but there you go. Has a nice picture of them on the front. But let's go ahead, hop in the photo tent, and take a look at the toys. Now you can see all three of the Minicons are in here, and you've got Heavy Tread, the tank, you've got Wind Shear, the helicopter, and you've got Runway, the airplane. One thing I do want to point out is that if you take a look at the packaging, you'll notice that the paint apps are a little different. You don't have the extra yellow on a lot of the extra points on the figures. There should be yellow back here on the exhaust. There should be some extra yellow up here on Wind Shear, on his arms that become that part up there. But otherwise, I think for the most part, they do look okay. The figures themselves, when they're in these vehicle modes, for the most part, they look okay. But they're not fantastic. A few things that I want to point out is, one, Heavy Tread over here, I've put this chain gun on. This chain gun, it shows it that way on the back of the package. But when you read through the instructions, this chain gun is actually supposed to be attached here on Wind Shear. You know, some kind of assault rifle thing. It's just too big. Like, it is way too massive for this little helicopter to have this giant gun on there. So I think attaching it instead on the top of the tank like it shows on the back of the package actually looks a lot nicer. That is actually a fairly decent looking tank. Looks pretty hardcore, and I'm pretty much fine with that. The other thing is the head here on the back. I have rotated it so that it's facing down. On the actual instructions, they just tell you to leave it like this, which is the way it is in robot mode. Which, I mean, why does it turn around? If you're going to leave it that way, who knows? But it leaves this big hole for the connector and that little connector piece sticking out there, which I just think looks stupid. So I do rotate it back around when he's in tank mode. The problem is he's got these little you know, things sticking out that actually hit onto the end to make it stop rotating, and so you have to kind of rotate it a little bit extra to push it out of the way, which makes the forehead rub on the ground. So I mean, it's a little funky. It doesn't work perfectly, but I do it that way. I just like it. I just like the look of it a little bit better this way, as opposed to having that giant hole in the back. The turret itself, it doesn't rotate at all. And the gun itself doesn't move at all. The only way is you can move the whole thing kind of up and down like this. Because of the way the gun is attached, you can push it down, then you can kind of move. These are the arms, so the arms have a ball joint in there, so you can kind of move it up a little bit. But for the most part, it doesn't really move. It just kind of sits like that. And the feet here, they're supposed to clamp together solidly and be shut, but as you can see, this one just doesn't quite close all the way. So overall it looks fine, but it's nothing too fantastic. All right, let's jump to Wind Shear here. Overall, Wind Shear, 90% looks okay. I mean, you've got the rotating blades there. You've got the rotating blades back here. The only thing I really take issue with are the legs. The legs right here, for whatever reason, they just kind of fold, and they're not hidden really. I mean, there's nothing about them that really hides them away. They look like a pair of legs. I don't know why they didn't give them more of a flat look, or even have like a little piece of railing kind of stuck on the side, some piece of molding, something on there to at least kind of cover up the fact that they're legs. But, you know, from this angle, it really doesn't look too bad, but then as soon as it starts to turn and you can just see, that's a leg, that's a high-heeled boot, lady's boot. Otherwise, though, I mean, I don't like the big metal, you know, plugs that stick out. They're just a little too obvious, but, I mean, you're going to get that in some of these cheaper sets. I mean, this was only, what, $12, $15, whatever, for this set of 3 Minicons, so you can't expect a whole lot. And then finally, Runway here. From this angle, I think Runway looks okay. From this angle, Runway looks alright. Not fantastic. But look, oh, there's a giant head just staring at you on the bottom of this Transformer. I think when you hold it this way, it's way too obvious that it's a robot. Oh, look, there are the legs folded up, there are the arms, there's the head. Just kind of funky looking from the bottom. But from the other views, I think from this view, it actually looks pretty cool as a jet. I just wish, again, as I pointed out earlier, the extra paint accents are not on here, and I wish they were. I think that would have helped to kind of break this up a little bit. Otherwise, it does look like this big piece of plastic that you just snapped on the back, which technically it is, because this is part of the gun apparatus, but there you go. So, we're going to take all 3 of these and we're going to make them transform. Normally I would, you know, take them and we do their little bling, you know, whatever, and they transform. But since we have 3 little guys here, we'll just go, hey, look at that, they transformed. Let's hop back in the photo tent. Okay, so here in their robot modes, we can see now how that they look. I think the weakest one out of all 3 is Heavy Tread here. I'm going to take a look at him first. The main problem is that he really doesn't break apart enough to really look like much of anything. We're looking at the underside of the plastic piece here for his arm. So it's just big and hollow, like Hasbro wants to do. There's no articulation anywhere along here. The only articulation is in the ball joint up here, so that helps it to twist, but it wants to move around in front, and it's blocked from being moved any further back. So there's really not a whole lot you can do with his arms, and the gun just fits in his hand and then folds back along the edge of it, just like it does in the tank turret. And when you look at the tank turret, that's basically what you're looking at there. So it doesn't fit in there very well. There's nothing to really grip. It just sits in that hole and attaches to his arm. So it's kind of like a, you know, Megatron type thing, the way he's got an arm cannon there. But it just really doesn't fit all that well. Now you can take it and take this piece from when he's Centuratron, and you can kind of jam it down in there, and then he holds on to it a little bit better, but then it just really looks kind of silly with this little guy having this gigantic gun on it. So he really just doesn't satisfy me in any way as far as that stuff goes. His body is obviously split there where the head rotates, and split down the middle, because that comes into play in the Centuratron transformation. So it just looks like there's really nothing going on there. Just kind of these hollow pieces. And the legs here, these pieces are supposed to rotate all the way down and be flush on the side to at least kind of hide them a little, but they just don't quite do it because of the cheap way in which they're made. And the legs just kind of move front and back, but actually don't move back very well. They just kind of move front, really. And so because of the way that they're made, there's just not a whole lot of ways he can move. There's not a whole lot he can do. And he has got these giant connector pieces for a Centuratron stuck on the top, which looks like antenna, with these extra little things on his feet. Like, to me, he looks more like some kind of Insecticon as opposed to a regular robot guy. So never going to be displayed in this fashion. Never, never, because that just looks terrible. I think that Wind Shear looks okay for the most part. What they've done with her gun that was, way too big, attaches to her arm. So again, you've got kind of that Megatron cannon, maybe, if you're reminded of Starscream or something like that. And I think for the most part, it works. It's, a little big in this size, but I think it looks okay overall. And there is a little bit of a cheat. The rotator tail here actually works as an extra leg to give her more balance because she has these tiny, skinny little legs. And that actually is kind of a good idea to help you keep her balanced. So you can kind of pose her a little bit and then play around with that third leg to kind of keep her balanced when you want to play with some of the posing options. So she actually works a little bit better as a robot than I think she does in the helicopter mode. And overall, for the most part, I'm not too upset with the way this one looks compared to that one. And then finally with Runway here, overall Runway looks fine. I don't think there's any real big problems. One of the few things that comes to mind is just the fact that the chest is this big open area, and you flip down the cockpit and it kind of covers it up, so it looks okay. The gun, though, is the one silly part. These are the thrusters that were on the back. And you attach them to the arm, and again, you're getting that arm cannon, same as all the others, but it just looks goofy. I mean, what the heck is this thing supposed to be? Some people prefer to flip it around and do it like this, because they think it looks better kind of sticking out a little bit, but then you've got the big hollow area from where it's covering up the legs in jet mode sticking out. So I don't really, I guess if you're going to be posing it some way where you're looking at this side, it looks a little bit better, but just not fantastic. So overall, in their robot modes, I think these two end up being okay. This guy just kind of pisses me off because there's really not a lot going on for him. His alt mode looks great, but in robot mode he's really disappointing, and I just don't see any good use for him like this. I almost wish in a way that they had found a way to make the head be on the back side, and then at least you're looking at a different part of him. I don't know, just overall not happy with him at all. But when I was a kid, I loved Devastator and the Constructicons and the idea of taking all of them and combining them all together into one. So that's really the reason why I bought this guy. Really the only reason was because I could take 3 little Transformers and combine them into one big Transformer. So we'll go once again and we'll transform him into Centuratron. Let's take a look. And here we have Centuratron. And it's got Tron in the name, right? So it can't be bad. So here you've got Heavy Tread down here at the bottom, Runway in the middle, and then Wind Shear at the top makes the head. And then all 3 guns come together to make this monstrosity of a weapon. Okay, couple things here to note. One is that the elbow joints for Centuratron are way up high. The arms kind of look funny because you have this tiny little piece here, you've got the elbow, and then you've got this giant arm coming down into the hand. And that's just kind of because of the way it's transformed. This is the leg of Runway, and it becomes the arm of Centuratron. And I think they did a pretty good job as far as, you flip this up to at least kind of cover up the big empty spot that's on the inside. But you still have this gigantic arm, tiny little arm up top, and it just kind of looks silly the way, it's almost like little baby T-Rex arms up at the top. Again, with Heavy Tread here down at the bottom, there's really no change. I mean, you've got Heavy Tread in robot form is like this, and then as the legs is like this. I mean, it's really, really disappointing the way that he transforms overall. I think the overall look of the robot is pretty good considering what we're working with here with these different pieces. Now again, you've got a lot of these, exposed metal parts out there. The same issues that plagued you before will still plague you here, where some of these pieces that are supposed to sit flush just won't do it. The midsection is a little funky because it's just kind of this open area where you've got one canopy kind of running into the other. So, I mean, there's really nothing going on there, but you generally have the arms in the way, kind of, plugging it up. And I guess the main problem overall is just that it feels light and cheap. Now, when we have another generation's figure like Scoop felt very hollow and very light, but he was big, solid, chunky pieces. This one feels very hollow and very light, and it's made of all these separate pieces that really have a hard time holding the weight, really have a hard time balancing because of the way they all fit together. And so there's not a whole lot you can do as far as posing Centuratron, my mistake, just because of the way things run into each other. These are the arms from Heavy Tread back here, and they get in the way of trying to move the leg. If you try to fold it back too much, it gets in the way. The photo on the back of the package shows the arms kind of sitting out like this in some fashion, instead of being all the way in the back, but the instructions actually tell you to fold it all the way in the back. Whatever. The way that these arms rotate up here, there's a little tab where they connect into the wing, but it comes loose all the time, and especially if you have the giant gun in there. So they even show the gun on the back of the package like this. Without this piece, I don't know where you're supposed to stick it. I mean, the only other hole really is right here, but I mean, I don't think you want your Transformer running around like this. I think that kind of gives the wrong impression. So overall, as excited as I was to get the three that combined into one, the final product I got just wasn't all that great. So for the most part, I tend to put these three into their vehicle modes and just leave them like that. Alright guys, well thanks for watching. If you come back next week, we're going to take a look at another Optimus Prime Beast Hunters variant, the gigantic guy with the big ring on his back that shoots little rockets, pew pew pew. And then after that, we're going to take a look at some G1 stuff that some of you guys have been asking about. So you can look forward to that. Don't forget to come to popculturenetwork.com. Check out the rest of the stuff we have available. You can find me on Twitter at PCN_dirt. You can go to jointheforums.com, the official forums of the Pop Culture Network, and talk to other people who are kind of pissed off about the Minicon Assault Team. Or you can call our 24-hour voicemail line. It's area code 217-953-4025. Thanks for watching, everybody, and I'll see you next week here on Formers Friday.